Environmental science was my forte, but I've had a very strong sense of environmental justice, about healthy and sustainable living, and mostly about community building. So I realized that I really didn't have to fit myself into a role, that I could fit the role into my beliefs and my values. So I loved my time there. I created the first and the largest green event in the borough at the time. This was quite some time ago, before green and sustainability caught on as much as it has today. And then I was recruited by the Brooklyn Navy Yard because of my work while I was at the Brooklyn Center for the Urban Environment. So yet again, finding myself in this kind of sector of manufacturing and economic development where women are represented, underrepresented, where people of color are underrepresented, and I was brought on to oversee all of their external affairs. It's a $35 million nonprofit, city-owned, as Medina said, and it bordered all along the waterfront, bordering some of the more popular neighborhoods of Brooklyn, so Dumbo, Williamsburg, Fort Greene. A really kind of bustling place, but very, very traditional, so very old school, blue-collar manufacturing. So it's kind of a long path from going from environmental education to manufacturing and economic development. And some of the challenges there was staff that were working there for 20, 30, 40 years. And for me, it was, I used to joke that this must have been how Obama felt during his first year, right? So kind of coming in with all this energy and all this hope, and then, kind of seeing a bunch of stoic, older, white male faces that are like, yeah, no, we're gonna block everything this youngin' wants to do and accomplish, right? So very male-dominated, very traditional blue collar. I always seemed to have the wrong shoes on anytime I was in a factory tour. And sometimes I literally felt like folks were patting me on my head. And my knowledge and seniority always felt like it was in question. So I spent a lot of time, I was there for 7 years, I spent a lot of time during the first few years really just proving myself and doing whatever I could to kind of gain that respect. Again, standing in my truth that I initially didn't know much about economic development. My greatest strengths, what I started to do was really use them to help them reach their fundraising goals, help them reach their PR goals, their marketing goals, their social impact goals, and in that way affecting economic development. So I did a lot of community outreach, public engagement. All of that led to an opening of a museum and exhibition center that engaged the public in ways that they had never done previously. And I learned a whole lot about economic development. So that was helpful as I transitioned into my new role as acting president and CEO at the Newark Community Economic Development Corporation. Ty mentioned this earlier. I am truly honored to really be working under the vision of Mayor Baraka and helping him carry out his economic development goals. But I guess I would start there with where my challenge is I guess being in this city. I am not a Newarker, so I usually open with that so folks know right off the bat. And I thought Brooklyn was kind of possessive and territorial, but you don't know territorial until you get to Newark. So I had to kind of establish myself and establish some credibility in the beginning. I feel like I'm still doing that. I think Medina said that he's on year 9 or 10, and he's still working on that. I'm the first woman president of the EDC. And while I knew what that meant and what that symbolized, I didn't really embrace it until I was appointed and really started getting a flood of calls and a flood of emails and folks visiting about how much more empowering that is. And the message that sends, not just on the confidence at the mayoral level, but that really women can lead this ship, and that was ship with a P. Women can lead the ship and really, really affect change. So I'm working with major developers and investors. They're always surprised when someone makes the introduction that I'm the president and the CEO. I usually get a high-pitched response of, oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I guess, I continue to be a glutton for punishment. I'm staying in a field where women are underrepresented in real estate development and economic development, but I find power in that. I truly do. So some of the lessons that I've learned so far is really demonstrating what you know. You don't have to know everything, right? So I find comfort in really tapping into the expertise and the capacity of my staff, right? And I feel like if you're not in situations where you can learn from the people around you, I don't care if they're your peers or your superiors or folks that report to you, then you need to change your situation. And I've always moved on from situations if I felt like I wasn't learning or I wasn't growing anymore. So I'm snarky. I use that in my job a lot. I'm interacting with large-scale developers and high-profile elected officials who have called me young lady. I usually respond with an old man. It tends to even the tone a little bit. They're always caught off guard a little, but it does even the tone. But that reminds me also that it's not about me. It's not about me in this role. It's about getting more Aishas in these roles. That each of us can and should envision and endorse for us to be in these roles. So I read something recently, and it was actually during the time of my transition, that men apply for positions when they meet 60% of the qualifications, and that women apply for the positions when they meet 100% of the qualifications. That is mind-blowing. And I frequently talk to people about, oh, you're in an acting role, are you going to apply? And the only thing that keeps me doubting myself sometimes, I'm like, well, what if somebody is like way better than me and can knock this out of the park? Because I'm thinking about Newark, I'm thinking about the city, like who can have the most impact? And I read that quote to myself again, and I'm like, well, it doesn't matter if you have 70 or 80 or 90%, you have the passion and the skills and the heart to really get it done. So I wanted to close with that before I actually say a few more things, because it just makes me think about why we're here today and the empowerment piece of women. A lot of the empowerment comes from ourselves. So I hear it from other folks all the time, but we have to instill and embrace it ourselves, otherwise it will never come to fruition. Over the past 20 years, I've been in corporate, nonprofit, and quasi-governmental agencies, and innovation to me has always meant to be resourceful, making something from nothing, using what you have to improve upon something else. Innovation is standing in my truth and using it to advance my goals and the goals of the collective. And when I stand in that truth, people recognize and they respond to my passion. I feel more authentic and confident. I bring my A game. My race, my gender empowers me. It helps me to add value, to bring a different perspective and sensibility that others may not. I've seen it, I've felt it, and sometimes folks look at you sideways like,